So, a lot has been made over the years about the superiority of the autistic person, how autism is a superpower and those who possess it are some sort of ascended master race. And while that's certainly true, I think there's another neuro illness that is very much sidelined, and that is the schizoid. That is the person who believes all kinds of weird stuff, who sees into the depths of reality for what it really is, who can see the fairies and the giants and the bumblebees and that the air is made out of custard and all this other stuff. They truly can pierce the veil and they keep us safe from all sorts of Lovecraftian evils. And this show is very much a tribute to the schizoid. And I'm speaking, of course, of Love, Chunibyo, and Other Delusions, probably one of my all time favorite romantic comedy animes. I decided to rewatch it before I did this review because a lot of the animes I've seen over the years I watched a long time ago, my tastes have changed. If I was to go back and look at the list I did a couple of years ago, I'd probably drop like half the stuff on it and add a bunch of stuff. So I said, you know what, I haven't watched this show in a long time. I like this show, I'm gonna watch it again. And watching it again, I enjoyed it just as much as I did the first time. I found the first season a little better than I remembered it being, and I found the second season a little worse than I remembered it being. But it's a show that I just think does so many things right. It does a lot of similar things as other romantic comedy high school shows, but it does a lot of things better and it has a lot of things it lacks. While it looks like it's going to go down that route, there's not really love triangles in any significant way. It at no point turns into a harem or a supporting harem as it is in a lot of shows. The main pairing's pretty early established, and although there's another girl who has a crush on Yuta, she really doesn't stand any chance, and it's just another schizo delusion on her part. By and large, most of the characters are decent people. No one's really like a massive dick. No one's like really super unlikable. There's a minimum of like the male characters getting beat up. Well, there's the exception of Greg Ayres, but he's Greg Ayres, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But it's probably my favorite male protagonist in a romantic comedy anime by a fairly significant margin. My second would probably be, I forget his name from Real Girl, but this guy's kind of similar to him in a lot of ways. So, that being said, I'd recommend watching this. Let's get into the actual show. So, Chunibyo is something I had never actually heard of before I watched this, but having heard about it, a lot of stuff in previous animes like Konosuba and some Fire Emblem characters makes a lot more sense to me. So, Chunibyo, or eighth grade syndrome as it's called in Western countries, is when kids start going through or about to start going through puberty and they develop these insane delusions of grandeur. They think they're like a protagonist in like an anime or an epic fantasy novel, and there's all this magical stuff they believe in. Everything has to be like super over the top, mega ultra, and just all kinds of like crazy stuff like that. I'm sure most of us have gone through a period like that during our childhood where we thought we had a dragon or we thought we had superpowers or were robots or aliens or something like that. And all the major characters in the show are either currently suffering from Chunibyo or have suffered from it in the past. And for two of the characters, it's about them continuing on through their Chunibyo, and for the other two main characters, it's about them trying to escape it and preventing anyone from ever finding out about it. So before we get into the plot, I'll introduce the four main characters and Greg Ayres. So our main character is Yuta, who's probably my favorite romantic comedy protagonist. And what I like about him is there's something I call the Delta male protagonist, whose main thing is he's not necessarily a Chad, he's not necessarily the best looking or the smartest, but he's just a really decent, hardworking guy. He's the kind of dude that you wish you knew, who you wish was your best friend, who you can trust with just about anything. And Yoda's a very good example of that. I don't think it's clear how good that his grades are. I'd imagine his grades are pretty good. He seems pretty smart to me. But unlike a lot of rom com protagonists, he really doesn't take shit from anyone. He will frequently hit Rika throughout the series, tell her to stop acting like a retard, um, try to like discipline her. If the other characters are doing something stupid, he'll point it out. He doesn't really do any of these in a mean or malicious way, but he's just not a pushover at all. Other characters like him is, I'd say, I forget his name, the main character of, although he's a bit more of a Chad, of Chivalry of a Failed Knight, the main character of Toradora, and the main character of uh, You Never Thought There Was a Girl Online are all kind of in this Delta male protagonist role. So he's our main character. And like I said, I like him a lot. Then we have Rika, who becomes his girlfriend, who has an extreme case of Chunibyo, and it's persisting long beyond it does for a lot of people. So she thinks that she is. It's kind of hard to understand. Maybe it's the English translation. She either thinks that she's the Wicked Lord or has the eye of the Wicked Lord, and she wears a medical eye patch with a contact lens, a colored contact lens under it, because she claims if she was to take it off, the power of it would destroy everything around her. And she has a umbrella that she carries around that she pretends is a magical weapon, and she just has all this stuff. She tends to wear super frilly, almost kind of cosplay gothic Lolita style dresses all over the place, and she just constantly yells about how she's the Wicked Lord and she's fighting the agency and the invisible boundary line and stuff like that. We eventually come to find out that um, it comes from the death of her father 3 years previously, her inability to deal with that, having to live with her father's family. She's also lived above Yuta's apartment for a number of years, and she watched him during his delusional phase where he thought he was the Dark Flame Master, and she saw kind of how confident it made him, and she wanted to adopt it for herself. So a lot of Yuta is trying to escape what he did in the past when he pretended to be the Dark Flame Master. So throughout the series, we see Yuta gradually fall in love with Rika, and his goal is to try to get her to gradually grow up. There's a part where he basically just forces her to act like a normal person, and it leads to severe depression on her part. So he decides that he's going to try to, rather than force her out of Chunibyo the whole time, trying to get her to gradually grow up. And they just have a very sweet relationship. Like I said, in contrast to a lot of things, he's very obviously wears the pants in the relationship, and he doesn't let her push him around at all. And if she acts like a retard in front of people, he will smack her and he will tell her off and tell her to go sit in the corner. Not in like a bad or mean way, but it's just something that's very refreshing to see. Then we have Shinka Nibutani, and I'm just going to point this out. I always think this is funny. The Japanese have a very strict system for determining Chad height and Stacy height. Chad height is generally speaking 5'10 to 5'11, and Stacy height is generally speaking 5'4 to 5'6. Shinka, I think, is either 5'5 or 5'6. And from Persona is 5'6. They even reference it in Toradora, where Ami is 5'6, and what's her name? Taiga seeds about it. So she's tall, smart, beautiful. She briefly has a relationship with Yuta, but it turns out the whole thing is an op on her part to try to get a book that Yuta has that contains the teachings of her former persona. She used to be someone known as Mori Summer, who went through a really, really bad Chunibyo period where she posted like thousands of pages of text about her like esoteric philosophies, and there's like pictures of her and stuff. And she just doesn't want it to get out because she wants to be like the ultimate Stacy and become student council president and lead the class and stuff like that. So it's kind of weird with her because we see her as like this perfect waifu, and then she kind of becomes a bitch, and then she kind of comes back to being in between, where she's a fairly decent person overall, just with a bit of an edge to her. And then finally, we have Sanai Dekamori, who's voiced by the same actress who plays Karen Tendo in Gamers, who has kind of a Stacy voice, I would say. So she is Rika's sidekick who comes from an extremely wealthy family and gets extremely high grades. And she is a devotee of Mori Summer, and she doesn't believe that Nibutani is Mori Summer. So a running joke is she just calls her fake Mori Summer. And is constantly like in a rivalry with her, and the two get into fights all the time. And they're kind of frenemies, and it's a lot of comic relief. She has bags of candy tied to her hair, which she uses as like weapons to hit people with that she calls Miomir. And then we have a couple side characters. We have Kumin, who's the another member of the Far Eastern Mass Magical Napping Society, where she's a cute girl who is homeschooled, so she's very naive and conservative in her outlook. She started a napping club, which no one joined. So they merged the napping club with the Far East Magical Society that Rika wanted to found, just so they could have enough members. And she tries to buy into the whole Chunibyo thing. Like she calls Nibutani Mori Summers and stuff. And she's kind of another comic relief character. And then we have Greg Ayres, who I think his name is technically Makoto, but it's just Greg Ayres. Greg Ayres is funny because in everything he's in, he plays like the incel loser who gets cucked. In basically everything. In particular, he's kind of that character a bit in Tales from the New World. He plays basically the exact same character here that he plays in Clanad. Okay, I'm just looking at his list. He's also Leo in Ghost Stories, who's another character like that. Basically, if you're watching something and Greg Ayres is in it, he's generally speaking going to be the incel with no luck with women. He's obsessed with trying to get Cumin to love him, but he's retarded and it consistently fails. He tries to run this like poll to pick who the cutest girl in the class is. And Nibutani, of course, wins. Enrica comes in third place. I think third and fourth are tied though. But he gets into shit and saves his head over that. He pretends to join the music club because he thinks having a guitar will make chicks like him and that sort of thing. And people like keep forgetting who he is, and he keeps showing up periodically. In the movie that concludes it, he barely has any screen time at all. And they even make fun of the fact he has barely any screen time. So Greg Ayres, in typical Greg Ayres fashion, just basically plays himself, which once again is something that I find pretty funny. Oh yeah, he's also Kensuke in the first two Evangelion movies, rebuild movies. So yeah, there is a long list there of Greg Ayres related roles. So the series itself just kind of takes place over high school. It's very slice of life ish, with them just kind of coming across stuff like, tests, dating, going on trips, things like that. And it's just kind of the story of Rika gradually growing up, Yuta trying to help her grow up, and just their various hijinks. Overall, I just say it's an extremely wholesome, fun, and enjoyable show. My only real complaint about it is season two. So, in season two, we introduce a new character, Satone, who was a classmate of Yuta back in when they were both had Chunibyo, and she didn't grow out of it or did grow out of it, and she was interested in Yuta, but Yuta was like in his schizo phase, so she couldn't get with him. So because she couldn't get with him, she decided to become Chunibyo again, and that she was going to stay Chunibyo forever because it was a way of coping with the depression of the guy she was in love with not liking her. I don't know, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but she shows up like after Rika and Yuta start dating, and you think she's going to maybe become a love rival or a third wheel, but she really doesn't. And she just kind of takes up space that could be filled up by other characters or have something else happen. Like if they were going to have a love rival, they maybe could have brought Nibutani back and had her develop a crush on Yuta. But that never happened, so she just kind of drags down the second season. Overall, the second season I thought was pretty good, but she dragged it down a fair amount. The movie I thought was not very good. I think a lot of people liked the movie Take On Me. I thought it was kind of lame, but and it didn't really add anything. It did finish off the plot line, but in a fashion that was extremely similar to what happened in the TV show. So that's my review of Love, Chunibyo, and Other Delusions. Really good show overall. If you're looking for a good rom com, definitely can't go wrong with it. More reviews to come, guys. God bless, and I'll talk to you real soon.